Shocking moment, they discovered how prayer reversed death for King Hezekiah. Few knew what truly happened that night in the ancient city of Jerusalem. The air was thick with fear, the kind that clutches at the heart and makes it hard to breathe. King Hezekiah lay weak, his body ravaged by illness. A sickness that seemed certain to end in death. The walls of the palace echoed with whispered prayers, both desperate and hopeful. It was a tumultuous time, around 700 BCE, a moment of trial for the people of Judah. The Assyrian army loomed at the gates, a terrifying threat on the horizon. The city was surrounded, feelings of dread pulsated through the streets. Yet, in the chambers of the palace, a far more intimate crisis unfolded. Hezekiah, the beloved king who had turned away from idols to serve the one true God, faced his own mortality. His reign had brought reform, yet there he was, on the edge of eternity, surrounded by darkness. As despair tightened its grip, the prophet Isaiah entered uninvited. He bore news that struck like thunder. "Get your house in order, for you shall die." The words hung heavy in the air. They pierced through the flickering light of the oil lamps, each flicker mirroring the weakening heart of the king. Hezekiah's face, once filled with vigor, now twisted in silent anguish. He dug his fingers into the cool stone wall, the rough texture grounding him, reminding him of the life he fought to keep. With this proclamation lingered a sinister mystery. Could a mere plea change the course of fate? Isaiah hardly had a chance to leave before Hezekiah turned his face to the wall, his eyes glistening as he wept. It was not the weeping of a defeated man but the raw, agonizing cries of someone who still believed in the power of mercy. "O Lord, please remember how I have walked before you faithfully." The stillness swallowed his words, moments stretched into eternity. The shadows danced as time seemed to pause, each breath a prayer wrapped in hope. And then, just like that, a breath of life surged back into the chamber. "Go back." Isaiah was beckoned back into the palace with instructions straight from heaven. "Tell Hezekiah, I have heard your prayer." In that instant, a miracle erupted, a promise to add 15 years to the king's life. How could this be? Was it simply wishful thinking, or did a divine hand truly intervene? The city buzzed with speculation. Eyes widened, and disbelief rippled through the crowds. Was this an act of God? Or merely a trick of circumstance? Even as joy flooded the palace, shadows of doubt lingered in the hearts of the people. They questioned and pondered, their minds racing to understand the reality of this proclamation. Could it be that prayer had power so strong it could bend the very will of death? The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the city, mirroring the uncertainty that rested in the hearts of many. Was this a true miracle, or was something darker at play? A mystery loomed, whispering through the streets. What would King Hezekiah do with his newfound time? How would this miracle reshape the fates of those around him? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. King Hezekiah sat upon his throne, yet he felt no weight of the crown upon his head. The air around him, once vibrant with the fervor of reform, now felt thick with uncertainty. Days passed since he received the news from Isaiah, and while joy bubbled over in the hearts of many, doubt lingered like a persistent shadow. How could life now feel so fragile after escaping the very clutches of death? He gazed out over the city of Jerusalem, its walls standing strong against the Assyrian menace outside, yet within the hearts of his people, fear crept like a treacherous vine. With 15 additional years granted, Hezekiah pondered whether they would use this time wisely or squander it in the face of adversity. He recalled his prayers, a soul stripped bare, pleading for mercy. What had he done to deserve this reprieve? Gathering his advisors in the great hall, Hezekiah sought to overcome the cloud of uncertainty. His voice, though strained, carried authority. "Brethren, we must fortify our defenses. If the threat of the Assyrians hangs heavy upon us, we owe it to our people to stand firm and trust in the Lord." He was met with nods of agreement, yet within their eyes flickered a hint of concern. Was this king's spirit made stronger by his miraculous recovery, or was it veiled in the fragility of borrowed time? As discussions took shape, whispers of the miracle began to emerge as well. Some hailed Hezekiah's recovery as a sign of favor from God, while others, eyes punctuated with skepticism, muttered that perhaps it was the outcome of natural forces alone. The rift between faith and doubt began to widen, dividing the people of Judah into camps of unwavering belief and cautious skepticism. That evening, Hezekiah found little solace in sleep. He wandered the palace corridors, the moon casting silver light across the stones, illuminating the path where so much had transpired. He paused at the prayer corner, where olive wood and bronze mingled with the scent of incense. Here, he had wrestled with God and with death. What he desired was not merely a longer life but wisdom to navigate this extension, a path out of despair into renewed purpose. As he knelt to pray, the words tumbled from his heart, "O Lord, grant me clarity in my time. What shall I do with this precious gift? How do I lead your people through this time of trouble?" The silence that embraced him felt profound, almost tangible. Was it within this stillness that God would respond? He recalled Isaiah's message and the palpable tension that transformed the room when the prophet proclaimed, "You shall not die." It stirred a deep curiosity in his spirit. What if the miracle extended beyond mere physical healing? What if this momentous blend of divine will and human longing could alter the course of his reign and reshape the very fabric of Jerusalem's destiny? In that quiet moment, he began to grasp the complexity that surrounded his life. Each decision weighed not only on his shoulders but upon the hearts of his people. Would he lead with the conviction of faith and courage, or would fear dictate his choices? The destiny of Judah was intertwined with his own, an intricate tapestry that needed divine guidance. Just as the first rays of dawn began to lighten the horizon, a shiver of certainty washed over him. He must take action, but how? How could he transform this miracle into a beacon of hope rather than a mere reprieve from death? That day, eyes outside the palace caught the sun rising but remained clouded with doubt, as Hezekiah looked inward. Was it enough to believe in divine intervention? Or would he have to confront the uncertainty that surrounded him, enabling his people to do the same? And so, he took a deep breath, prepared to share the news of his recovery with the people, to offer them the hope that came with his new lease on life. But as he stepped towards the threshold, a question lingered in the air, though unspoken mystery hovering above their heads. Would the people of Judah see this miraculous recovery as a chance for renewal, or would they remain ensnared in the shadows of the past? Days turned into weeks, and the news of King Hezekiah's miraculous restoration spread through the streets of Jerusalem like wildfire. The people, once paralyzed by fear of the looming Assyrian threat, began to gather in groups, finding solace not only in their king's recovery but also in shared stories of faith and resilience. Hope, like the first shoots of spring, began to break through the hardened soil of skepticism that had taken root within their hearts. In the temple, chants of gratitude mingled with prayers as the people praised the God who had granted them a second chance. Yet, for every shout of joy, there remained a whisper of doubt. Could this gift be trusted? Was it truly from the Almighty, or merely coincidence painted in divine colors? The priests, in a state of fervor, sought to prepare themselves for what would be the most significant spiritual reflection since the days of Moses. They gathered to discuss the nature of faith and the deeper truth behind Hezekiah's miracle. Meanwhile, there stood the king, surrounded by banners and the jubilant throngs below his balcony, contemplating the meaning of his recent experience. He had felt the shadow of death lift, leaving behind a question that gnawed at him: what had changed? A physical ailment had been purified, but he sensed an internal battle raging anew, one that would take more than mere bravery to confront. Hezekiah's gaze fell upon the faces of his people, a kaleidoscope of emotions: joy, bewilderment, and an undercurrent of fear. This diverse tapestry of thoughts echoed his own. What would the next chapter in their collective tale look like? He felt an urgent need to guide them beyond the celebration, towards a deeper understanding of their faith. In that moment, he realized the time had come for a declaration. Ascending the steps to the balcony, Hezekiah raised his hands, and a hush fell over the crowd. "People of Judah," his voice called out, firm yet tender. He paused, recalling the weight of responsibility he carried. The lives below depended not just on his decisions, but also on the character of their faith. "I stand before you, not merely as your king restored to health, but as your fellow servant, seeking clarity on the purpose beyond this miracle." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, a blend of curiosity and skepticism as he continued. "I have been given 15 more years, yet what weight does this gift carry? Have those years been granted to me for comfort, or is there a greater calling?" The king's heart raced as he spoke fervently of dedication. It is not enough for us to rejoice without understanding what God desires from us. We must prepare our hearts, for the shadows of Assyria still threaten our shores. Our faith must be fortified, our resolve renewed, for in unity lies our strength. With every word, Hezekiah sought to raise their spirits, but with each passing sentence, a deeper truth emerged in his own understanding: the miracle was not solely for him. This moment was a call to action, an invitation for the people of Judah to come together under God's banner, to face their fears with courage, and to transform their collective faith into a shield against despair. As he concluded his speech, he noticed a peculiar stillness among the people, a mix between inspiration and the heavy weight of acknowledgement. It dawned upon him that as they looked up to him, they too felt drawn towards the divine connection he had glimpsed during his darkest hours. How far could this renewal of faith go? Could a community transformed by gratitude unite to face their enemies, not just as victors but as bearers of hope? That night, as darkness fell over the city, Hezekiah found himself once more at the corner of prayer. There, he knelt, weighed down by the gravity of his experience. His heart whispered a plea: "O Lord, allow this moment of revival to be a turning point in the lives of my people. May our resolve be baked in the fires of faith rather than molded by fear." Yet, as he rose, a new revelation prickled at the edges of his mind. The shadows of doubt still loomed not just over others, but even within him. What if they grasped only desperation and not the fervor to act? Would they lean into their faith, or would they falter when faced with trials anew? And so, through the cool night air, a single unanswered question hung heavy with anticipation: how would the people of Judah choose to respond to their miraculous opportunity? Would they rise together in faith, or would they allow the shadows of uncertainty to cloud their hearts once more? In the following days, the bustling streets of Jerusalem transformed into a sanctuary of reflection. The whispers of hope that once delicately fluttered through the air began to grow into a chorus of fervent prayers. The people, eager for signs of divine approval, flocked to the temple with offerings of gratitude. Yet, amidst the celebration, a profound sense of anticipation began to cloud their hearts. Encouraged by Hezekiah's declaration, the priests delved deeply into the sacred texts, seeking wisdom and guidance. They pored over scrolls, immersing themselves in the ancient prophecies that spoke of healing and redemption. Their discussions reverberated within the temple walls, intertwining stories of promise with the impending fears of Assyria. One gloomy day, a stranger emerged from the outskirts of Judah, cloaked in humility yet radiating a strange authority. His arrival stirred curiosity and apprehension. He was known as Obadiah, a seer gifted with discernment, rumored to possess insights beyond the temporal world. As he stood among the people, his gaze fell upon the high priest, whose countenance reflected both reverence and doubt. "Tell me, what burden weighs upon the heart of your people?" Obadiah inquired gently, his voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying the weight of the heavens. The high priest, confounded yet intrigued, recounted the miraculous restoration of King Hezekiah and the resulting swell of hope that mingled with worry. Obadiah listened intently, nodding solemnly. Miracles often serve as both a light and a test. The people must discern the call of the Almighty amid their celebration. His words hung in the air like fragrant incense. Days turned into nights filled with stirring sermons and fervent prayer gatherings in the temple. One evening, as a soft, warm light bathed the sacred space, the people sensed a stirring within their souls. They murmured simple prayers, not for deliverance from their foes, but for a deeper understanding of their covenant with God. Hezekiah, witnessing this awakening within the hearts of the people, felt renewed purpose rise within him. He met Obadiah under the flickering light of the temple lamps, seeking clarity on the path that lay ahead. "What must my people understand to hold on to this miracle?" he implored. Obadiah, his eyes shimmering like stars caught in the dark tapestry of night, replied, "The gift of life carries with it the obligation of stewardship. Your restoration was a conduit, a fleeting glimpse of the divine light. But the question remains, will the people walk in this light or shy away when the shadows grow long?" This stirred something deep within Hezekiah. He envisioned the battles ahead, their very foundation rooted in the spiritual awakening they were nurturing. But he also felt the creeping sensation of doubt, a thread woven into the fabric of humanity. Could faith withstand the looming threat? As the days wore on, Hezekiah summoned the leaders of Judah to meet within the sacred chambers of the temple. The air was thick with expectation as leaders, warriors, and elders gathered, each a vital piece of the community's resolve. In this sacred circle, Hezekiah stood tall. "Together, we must recognize that our strength does not lie in the sword, but in our unity and faith. We have witnessed a miracle, and now we must nurture it. We can face anything with courage if our hearts beat as one. Yet among the shadows of the gathering, doubts flickered like candle flames threatened by the wind. Some gazed at their king with uncertainty, questioning the roots of their newfound hope. Were they inspired, or had they merely returned to the comfortable embrace of complacency? That night, Hezekiah once again found himself kneeling in earnest prayer, his heart heavy with the burden of leadership. "O Lord," he whispered, "as I draw strength from this experience, grant my people the courage to confront the shadows that threaten us, not through bitterness, but through faith and unity. Show us how to embrace our trials as instruments of your will." But even as the words left his lips, a question pricked at his soul: would their faith endure beyond the fires of uncertainty that loomed on the horizon? Would the people heed the call to action, or would they slip back into doubt, letting fear eclipse the miracle gifted to them? Hezekiah awoke the next morning with the rising sun, the light creeping softly through the temple's ornate windows. The golden rays seemed to dance playfully across his face, bringing with them a sense of renewal. Yet, as he rose to face the day, the echoes of his prayer lingered in his spirit, sharpening his resolve even amidst uncertainty. In the days that followed, an unusual serenity enveloped Jerusalem, but it was not born solely of the recent miracles. It was as if the very air was charged with an energia reminder that the divine was near. The priests continued their readings, but now they added something new: songs of joyful proclamations. The people sang of their heritage, recounting tales of old when their ancestors faced indomitable foes. They remembered their covenant, a living testament to their identity as the chosen people. During one such gathering, as the melodies swirled and reverberated within the temple, Obadiah stood at the entrance, observing the fervor. His heart stirred with both delight and concern. The people's joy was evident, yet he sensed a yearning for deeper understanding, a hunger for wisdom that transcended the surface of their celebrations. That evening, Hezekiah arranged for Obadiah to share his insights with the gathered assembly. The temple, filled with the fragrance of incense, exuded an atmosphere of reverence. When Obadiah spoke, his voice wove a tapestry of history with the present. "Beloved people of Judah, you witness miracles, yet every miracle invites a response. What will you do with the life restored to your king?" A hush fell over the crowd as Obadiah's words imbued the air with weighty contemplation. "Will you return to the old ways, or will you embrace the transformative power of faith that has been gifted to you once again? Remember, it is not enough to merely celebrate your deliverance. Your rebirth is also a call to action." Hezekiah felt the gravity of those words. They were not a mere declaration but a clarion call to nurture their spiritual awakening in the reality of their trials. As the seer spoke, Hezekiah's mind raced through the stories of his ancestors, how they had faltered and risen, how they had felt the palpable presence of God yet often succumbed to despair in dark times. The lessons of the past echoed loudly. One elder, emboldened by Obadiah's message, raised his voice among the assembly. "We have witnessed the hand of God amongst us. But in our restoration, we must not forget our brethren in the northern tribes who suffer under shadows of their own. How can we claim healing if we do not reach out? Hezekiah sensed the truth in the elders' plea. Their restoration could not be an isolated blessing, it must spill forth into the lives of others. Indeed, the king replied, his eyes glowing with fervor. We have been brought back from the grip of despair, and it is our duty to extend that light to our brothers and sisters. We shall not rest while there is breath in our lungs. The crowd stirred with a renewed spirit, yet Obadiah, observing the rising passion and yet lingering doubt, interjected gently. Remember, true unity is forged through trials. The Assyrians gather at our borders, intent on extinguishing our flame. Let this not sow fear among you but ignite the purpose within each heart. Your covenant is not only a gift but a call to endure. As the assembly contended with the reality of impending conflict, Hezekiah felt the overwhelming weight settle upon him once more. How, then, shall we prepare our hearts for the trials ahead? He pondered as he later sought solitude beneath the stars, contemplating Obadiah's reflection on the nature of their covenant, but in the quiet of that night, a deeper question emerged, a whisper amidst the starlit sky: would they choose to stand steadfast as a united people, or would the pressure of their battles lead them back to division and fear? How could they embrace their trials as a crucible for a faith that could withstand anything? As dawn broke over Jerusalem, the light unfurling like a scroll across the sky, Hezekiah found himself gripped by an urgency he could not shake. He had awakened anew, yet the weight of the nation pressed heavily upon him. With each passing moment, the tension at the borders grew, a reminder that their restoration could herald further trials. He called for Obadiah to join him in the quiet confines of the temple, a sacred space now echoing with the residue of prayers and hymns. Obadiah, Hezekiah began, his voice barely a whisper amidst the quiet reverence, how do we prepare our hearts for what is to come? We may have tasted deliverance, but the challenges of tomorrow loom ever closer. The seer regarded him thoughtfully. King Hezekiah, the essence of preparation lies not merely in arms or strategy, but in a profound awareness of our covenant. What we have witnessed is not solely a miracle for the eyes, but a call to deeper communion with the divine. Each moment of prayer, every act of faith weighs on the balance, for our spirit must emerge refined even amidst the fire. Hezekiah nodded, feeling the truth in Obadiah's words. Their prayers had already begun to weave a tapestry of restoration, but how could they fortify their faith to withstand impending storms? And what of our people? He questioned, a frown creasing his brow. How do we gather them to this inner strength during such turbulence? Obadiah's gaze drifted to the temple's upper ledge, where sunlight broke through an ornate window, illuminating the stone in golden fractals. Lead them, my king. Share with them the testimonies of their forefathers, recount the covenant anew so their hearts may remember the strength bestowed upon them from generations past. Let them feel the weight of their identity, for faith flows through the lineage of our ancestors. With resolve igniting within him, Hezekiah summoned the leaders of the tribes to the temple. The familiar aroma of incense filled the air as each elder gathered, representing the mosaic of Judah and Israel. As Hezekiah stood before them, he chose his words carefully, knowing their power held the potential to unite or fracture. Beloved leaders, he began, we stand upon the precipice of an era marked by both miracle and challenge. Our deliverance from death has not been the end but rather the beginning. How shall we now respond, together, to the shadows that seek encroachment on our promised land? An elder from Benjamite spoke first, urgency lacing his tone. The stories of our ancestors remind us that there is strength in unity. They faced giants armed with faith, not fear. Let us establish gatherings of prayer nights dedicated to seeking the Lord for wisdom, for strategies, and for the hearts of our people. The assembly filled with murmurs of agreement and hope. Yet Obadiah raised a finger, punctuating the air with solemnity. Your gatherings must extend beyond songs and prayers, they must evolve into actions that reflect the heart of God. Demonstrate mercy, righteousness, and the pursuit of justice. This will truly cement your standing in his sight. Hezekiah's heart swelled with purpose as he contemplated the work ahead. Then we shall teach our people, he declared, to not merely recite their faith, but to live it as a vigilant people. The work is vast, but we do this as one. What may seem small in the eyes of the world can shift the heavens. As the sun began its descent, casting longer shadows across the temple courtyard, a deep awareness settled upon Hezekiah. He recalled the quiet whisper of the night before, a gentle reminder that in the concoction of faith and action, there lay a sacred alchemy. Yet even amidst such hopeful determination, a question emerged, persistent and nagging, echoing in his soul: could their transformed hearts truly cultivate a unified front, or would the weight of an impending conflict drag them back towards the divisions of the past? What unseen forces might test their resolve before the dawn of unity could truly break? As twilight painted the skies with hues of orange and violet, the Temple of Jerusalem became a sanctuary of murmured prayers and flickering shadows. Hezekiah could feel the palpable energy of anticipation and fear intermingling within the walls. The assembly, now fully aware of their shared burdens and hopes, lingered in hushed conversations, each elder wrestling with the significance of what lay ahead. "Let us not just gather in pleasantries," spoke Tabitha, a wise matriarch of the tribe of Judah, stepping forward with a steadier voice. "Let us confront the darkness that looms, not merely with words, but with a resolute spirit that echoes the strength of our forebears. Let us evoke the unyielding promise of our God." With a nod, Hezekiah encouraged her onward. "Then let us share the stories of triumph from our past, the times when the faith of our people stirred the heavens to act. I recall the days when Moses lifted his hands towards the sky, and the tide of battle turned. Each recounted victory shall serve as an anchor against the tides of despair." The elders formed a circle, their faces illuminated by the dim light of oil lamps. Each took turns retelling the sagas of their lineage: the parting of the Red Sea, the fall of Jericho, the bravery of Deborah. They breathed life into the tales, their collective voices rising like an ancient hymn, intertwining their spirits. Yet, even as Hezekiah embraced the spirit of remembrance, an uneasy thought gnawed at him. Will our past sustain us now? Can the echoes of these tales truly guide us through the tumult that awaits? What if the weight of our heritage proves too heavy to carry in these days of uncertainty? Obadiah, sensing his king's turmoil, placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "The memories of your people are not merely stories, my king. They are a testament to the covenant you share with the divine. You must lead them in prayer, but also in reflecting on the lessons embedded within those narratives. Each encounter with the divine carries a resonant message suitable for the present moment." The gathering fell solemn, each individual contemplating the enormity of what lay before them. Hezekiah knew they needed more than reflections, they needed the power of collective prayer to breathe into the remnants of fear and doubt. He proposed a night of prayer that would extend into the dawn, where the people would cry out for wisdom, healing, and strength, their voices rising together, a single flame against encroaching shadows. As the candles flickered and the atmosphere thickened with the weight of faith, Hezekiah felt an unexplainable wave wash over him, a warmth that permeated his core. It reminded him of the promise spoken to him during his discernment of the Futurian invitation to build a bridge between past deliverance and present trials. "We shall come together," he proclaimed, his heart steadying. "Let every household invite their neighbors, let us form chains of prayer around this city like a fortress. And even if the horizon darkens, our collective hearts shall shine amidst the gloom." Among the assembly, a murmured enthusiasm arose, catching fire as a shared realization dawned, a sense of purpose melded with a sacred trust that transcended their doubts. Yet, even in this moment of unity, an unsettling belief whispered through Hezekiah's mind. Could these acts of faith truly alter the course of destiny? Were their combined prayers sufficient to shift the situation unfolding at their borders, or merely hopeful whispers amidst the storm? In that fleeting echo of uncertainty, he found his resolve strengthened, knowing that every journey into the unknown would require a step deeper into faith, where questions transformed into prayers, and uncertainty into a profound trust in the unfolding plan of the divine. What if the true test was not just the strength of their hearts, but their willingness to stand vigil together, even when no immediate answers were in sight? As the night deepened, the assembly's spirit swelled with the fervor of their prayers. Silence fell between the whispered supplications, leaving space for the heartbeats of countless supplicants to harmonize in the cool evening air. The sacred energies of the temple elevated their voices, transforming individual cries into a collective heartbeat, echoing through the stone walls that had borne witness to both despair and divine intervention across generations. the elders encircled Hezekiah, their faces reflecting the flickering glow of the candles, eyes closed in devotion. The emotion enveloped them, weaving together their dreams for the kingdom, the longing for peace and protection, yet, within that silken web lay an edge of fear that pricked at their thoughts. Would the heavens heed their call? Would their stories rich with lessons of old carry weight in the solemnity of the hour? As the hours drifted into the quiet of the night, Hezekiah found himself drifting into a contemplative trance, visions swirling like the smell of incense rising to the high rafters. In these moments, he felt the surge of ancestral power course through him, the spirits of Moses, Joshua, and David, all conjured by the resonance of remembrance. Suddenly, amid the calm, a shadow undulated on the edge of his awareness. A figure emerged before him, shimmering in the dim light as if rising from the echoes of their prayers. Hezekiah blinked, but the presence did not wane, it drew closer, embodying the mystery of the divine. "Fear not, Hezekiah," the figure intoned with a voice like cascading waters, soothing yet commanding. "Your prayers have been heard. You stand at a threshold, and the whispers of your heart have stirred the heavens. The trials that threaten your kingdom are known in the heavenly realms, but this moment of unity can shape your path. Your act could lead to healing or to the trial of your faith." Opening his mouth to respond, words faltered. The weight of the ramifications embedded within this presence sank in as he marveled at the potential of their fervent pleas. The unity of their prayer, the desire for protection, it could lead to transformation. Yet, clouds of doubt loomed within him, casting shadows over his hope. What of the fate we await? Hezekiah questioned, feeling the tremor of vulnerability weave through his voice. The shadows gather at our borders, and I fear we may not have the strength to withstand them. How can these gathered prayers reach to the divine when our human hearts quail? The figure inclined its head, eyes gleaming with understanding. Even the faintest flicker can ignite a blaze. But remember, it is not the strength of your plea alone, but the sincerity and unity behind it that compels action in the heavenly realms. Every heart that bends in humility will be heard. Your people must come together in this fight, not for security alone but for the sake of their faith and their connection with the divine. Hezekiah's resolve began reinvigorating under this divine counsel. He thought of the elders, the children, the hopes woven into every prayer. In the depths of uncertainty, he recalled how fervently they recounted victories that bore echoes of divine intervention. "Shall we then prepare for what lies ahead?" he whispered, almost to himself. Preparation is a dual journey, one of the heart and the spirit. A united heart can turn the tide of despair, raising not just voices, but spirits towards the eternal. "Courage, my king, for it is the bonds of faith that entwine you with the divine." As the figure pulsed with ethereal light, it began to dissolve into the dawn that was slowly embracing the horizon. Hezekiah felt an immense weight shift within him, burdens lightening as understanding washed over his spirit. The flickering shadows in the temple transformed, heralding the approach of dawn, coaxing forth a new resolve from the weary assembly. Together, they shared not merely words of prayer but an unyielding commitment to their faith, a tangible expression of collective trust that the heavens would respond. Yet even as he celebrated this emerging strength, a question remained aflame in Hezekiah's heart. Could they truly weave their separate threads of faith into a tapestry potent enough to shape their very destiny against the looming threats? Would unified prayers not only pierce the silence of despair but echo through the annals of time, forever changing the fate of Judah? The dawn broke, spilling light like liquid gold across the temple's weathered stones. Hezekiah stood at the altar, the remnants of his dream lingering like the scent of burnt offerings. The assembly, rekindled by the sacred echoes of their communion, began to awaken from their prayerful reverie. Hearts once heavy were now buzzing with renewed vigor, an unspoken agreement binding them to shared purpose. As the sun climbed higher, Hezekiah gathered the elders in a circle, their bodies still weary but their spirits buoyed by the celestial encounter. "Brothers," he began, voice steady yet soft, "we have been called to prepare not merely for the battles beyond our borders, but for the turmoil within our very souls. We must align our faiths so that they resonate with the harmony we seek." Elder Nathan, a man whose beard had grown white with wisdom yet whose eyes sparkled with youthful fervor, stepped forward. "What do you propose, O king?" Are we to gather our people in the town square and lift our voices as one? Shall we chant in unison until the very walls of our homes tremble with the resonance of our faith? Yes, Hezekiah affirmed, feeling a warmth pulsate through their gathering. But it is more than mere words. It will be an act of the heart, a demonstration of our unity before the Almighty. Let us arrange a day of consecration, where the people reconcile with one another and lay down their burdens as an offering to our Creator. So it was that men, women, and children began to prepare for a day of gathering, casting aside their differences and nurturing a flame of hope among them. As the news spread through the land, townsfolk left their fields and homes, drawn by the promise of unity and strength. They brought forth their humility, their tribulations, and the silent cries that had clasped tightly to their hearts for far too long. Families reconciled, friendships rekindled, and the fabric of their community began to weave anew. When the day arrived, the temple swelled with people, their voices rising like incense towards the heavens. Hezekiah stood before them, a figure transformed, galvanized by the power of their togetherness. With every shout of adoration and every whisper of repentance, the air shifted, the very atmosphere thickened, pregnant with possibilities. For the first time in many years, an awestruck silence preceded the next breath of their fervent prayers, but as the prayers soared, there remained a pall of uncertainty that loomed near. What if their cries fell upon deaf ears? In the ache of anticipation, Hezekiah felt a gnawing at his soul, a flicker of doubt amidst the blazing resolve. It whispered of his own inadequacies and the interminable danger waiting at their borders. Was it enough to stir the compassion of the divine? Just then, a rustle at the rear of the gathering drew everyone's gaze. An old woman, weathered by the trials of her years, stepped forth, her face illuminated with a serenity born of conviction. "Do not falter, King Hezekiah," she called, her voice rising above the thrumming hearts. "Every prayer uttered, every heart knit together, weaves a fabric that can pull the very heart of God. I have seen the power of communal faith in dire times. My son was thought lost to illness, but it was the love of our community, prayers and faith intertwined, that brought him back." The murmurs around her burgeoned with wonder, feeding the flames of their shared belief. Hezekiah met her gaze and felt the urgency of their collective heartbeat pulsate through him. He understood, in that moment, that their prayers were not merely requests from their lips but lifelines thrown wide, reverberating across the realms. As they continued in prayer, encircled not just by walls but by intangible threads of hope, Hezekiah knew it was time to extend their commitment. "Let us also pledge our resolve," he declared, "to care for the heavy-hearted among us, to carry our burdens together. In our love for one another, we may find the very healing we seek." Nods of agreement rippled through the assembly, yet even as they rejoiced in purpose, Hezekiah couldn't shake the question looming heavily in his mind. If their unity could foster change, how would they respond when faced with the chilling breath of uncertainty? Would their boundless faith endure when shadows threatened to engulf the light? Indeed, what if the very act of their coming together stirred an answer that neither they nor the heavens had yet anticipated? In the days that followed Hezekiah's call to unity, a palpable energy coursed through Jerusalem. The people, once clouded by fear and uncertainty, now moved with purpose. Each day brought gatherings that filled the temple's ever-growing tide of worship, where they brought their vulnerabilities before the Almighty. As the sun cast long rays over the city, it illuminated not just the stones of the temple but the newfound hope ignited in hearts that had long dimmed under the weight of anxiety. Yet as formidable as their gathering was, a shadow loomed beyond the city walls. The emissaries of Assyria intensified their threats, and the drums of war echoed a truth that could not be ignored. The tension tightened like the strings of a bow drawn taut, ready to snap. For weeks, the city prepared, prayers ascending alongside whispers of fear. Even amidst the fervor of faith, doubts gnawed at King Hezekiah's heart like hungry beasts. It was during one such evening, alone in the quiet of the temple, that Hezekiah wrestled with his own fears of inadequacy. Flanked by ancient stone walls that had witnessed the triumphs and trials of his forebears, he lamented, "O Lord, I have called upon my people to gather, but what if our prayers are not enough? What if facing the invaders requires more than faith?" His voice trembled, resonating with the depths of uncertainty that plagued his spirit. the air around him grew thick, and in the midst of his distress, a flutter of wind kissed his brow, carrying with it a familiar scent incense, mingling with the sweet fragrance of olive blossoms. It seemed, in that moment, the divine had drawn near. The calming presence of God reverberated gently within the silence, washing over him like cool water. He felt an invitation to listen, to sense the spiritual truths enfolded just out of reach. Remember, Hezekiah, a voice stirred within him, not audible, but burdened with wisdom. Your faith is not merely in prayers, but in the actions that follow. Have you not seen how the touch of unity manifests strength? The answer lies not in isolation but in the heart of community. Each voice raised can shift the balance of power. Therefore, led not only in guidance but in vulnerability. A flicker of realization ignited in his heart. Yes, he had called for unity, but had he fully embraced it himself? With renewed purpose, he rose and sought out his people, eager to share what had been revealed to him. It was a time not just for communal prayers but for collective action, every hand raised not only in worship but in the supportive embrace of one another. The following day, Hezekiah gathered the leaders once more, inviting every elder and warrior to the throne room. As they assembled, their faces wore a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. My fellow leaders, we stand on sacred ground, vessels of unity in a time of trial. Our prayers alone hold power, but it is our collective actions, born from faith, that will shine a light against the encroaching darkness. Hear me, Hezekiah continued passionately, the shadows of war may loom, but we will not merely cower in hope of safety. We shall set forth not only as defenders of Jerusalem but as beacons of cohesion, aiding our neighbors and affirming our resolve together. Let our unity transcend fear and ignite courage across the land. A murmur of resolve rippled through those gathered, flushing the room with renewed light. They would send emissaries of goodwill to neighboring tribes, invite them to unite not as separated nations but as one family bound by a covenant with God. They would forge alliances in faith that could withstand whatever trials lay ahead. Days turned into weeks, and as the sun dipped beneath the horizon on the eve of a pivotal showdown with Assyria, the people gathered anew. The air vibrated with anticipation as families assembled in the temple, filling every corner until not a single spot remained empty. Hezekiah stood at the altar, heart racing, spirit soaring with the collective heartbeat of his people. He raised his hands not for a mere blessing but as a symbol of solidarity. Tonight, we offer ourselves as living sacrifices, he declared. May our faith, proven in action through our love, shine like a beacon of hope into the darkness. We will lift our voices not only for deliverance from foes but for the healing of broken communities. We will step into the fray together, for the trials we face are not ours alone to bear. With breathless determination, they prayed in unison, hearts beating as one chorus woven in faith that echoed beyond the temple walls, calling upon the heavens. O Lord, grant us strength. Grant us unity in our hearts. Let not fear overwhelm, but light our souls aflame. As their closing prayers reverberated through the night, a stillness enveloped Jerusalem, pregnant with anticipation. The people felt an electric charge in the air, a moment suspended as if time stood still, and in that stillness a light flickered against the encroaching night. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and it became evident that indeed they had been heard. Outside the city, the shadowy figures of the Assyrian army paused, confusion shimmering in their ranks, whispering among themselves. A celestial presence loomed over the battlefield, a divine light illuminating the darkness. In the hearts of the soldiers, doubt began to creep in. They sensed an unfamiliar fear that took root deep within. With the arrival of dawn, the Assyrians awoke to find their belief in invincibility starting to crack. Within Jerusalem, the citizens felt a surge of encouragement and clarity. The king, standing tall upon the city's walls, illustrated the prophetic truth that strayed not far from the hearts of the people. Look! Our God fights for us. Our prayers have ignited the winds and turned the tide. In that moment, as the sun rose, the Assyrian army began to tremble, fear swept like wildfire through their ranks. Jerusalem had become a bastion of faith, their unity formed through shared trials and fervent prayers unshackled from inhaled doubt. The clash that should have wrought destruction transformed into an unimaginable retreat. God had moved in ways unthought, a divine intervention magnified not by the strength of steel but by the faith held unwaveringly in the hearts of the people united. What unfolded was not merely a narrative of survival, it became a testament of transformation. As the dust settled and cheers erupted from every corner of Jerusalem, every inhabitant realized the pivotal truth. They had faced their fears, stood in unity, and steered by faith had sparked a divine response that would carry into generations. In that sacred moment of joy, beneath the unyielding sky, Hezekiah whispered a prayer of gratitude, not merely for deliverance but for the awakening that surged forth from their epic trial. "O Lord," he murmured, "we walked through shadows but emerged into light. Help us remember that we are not just rejoicing tonight, we are called to live in this light, empowered by our faith, to lead through love and grace." As time drifted on and the people prospered in the aftermath, they carried with them the echoes of this miracle. The story of Hezekiah's renewal became a guiding testament not just of a king's survival, but a community's awakening, forged together against the darkness, sealed in divine purpose. This sacred truth etched itself into the hearts of the people of Judah, echoing into eternity, a reminder that true strength lies not solely in individual might but in the united spirit of a community, dedicated to love, faith, and the heart of God.